rotate your phone. Hi everybody, I'm back for another live because I am making my most favorite cake, and I just posted the recipe in the group, Dr. Joel Fuhrman's Never Get Sick chocolate cake. And what I love about this is it has all these great ingredients that no one knows that it has in it, and it's hidden and it's tasty and delicious. So you need a food processor to make this because the dates are the sweetener. So the first thing we have, if you'll look at that recipe, is whole wheat pastry flour. And you can get whole wheat pastry flour if you don't grind it yourself at Sprouts or any other store that carries Bob's Red Mill. Whole wheat pastry flour is from the summer soft wheat grain. This is not the same as 100% whole wheat because that is from the winter hard berry. So when you have a recipe that calls for pastry flour, that usually means that it wants a lighter weight grain. So look for the whole wheat pastry flour at your store if your recipe calls for it. You can substitute them intermittently if you want. You just have a little bit denser cake or cookie, whatever you're making. Hey Karen, how are you? Are you in town or out of town, you sweet friend? Okay, first thing we need to do, it says mix in the food processor. That's what we're going to do. 3 cups of the dates. I have 3 cups of these dates, and I get my dates from the Endopack store in Richardson because they're already pitted, and this whole thing is only $3.99. So I've got 3 cups of pitted dates into the food processor. Then you want the pineapple. It calls for a cup of pineapple in its own juices. So I am just going to guesstimate that. That looks like about a cup. And I like to keep my fruits cut up in the fridge for easy access with the date on top so that you know. Okay, let's see. After the pineapple, it calls for 1 banana. So I'm going to sort of squeeze that and get that started. It'd be better if it was a little bit riper. You know, the riper they are, the sweeter they are. But I don't have any real ripe ones right now. Okay, there's my banana. It calls for 1 cup of unsweetened applesauce. Well, I always do substitutions. If I don't have applesauce, I'll use something else, and I happen to have some homemade grape jam that I need to use up, and it's not quite a cup, so I will add something to that. That's 3/4 of a cup. So let me go get I'll add a little bit more banana to make up the difference right there. So instead of the 1/4 of a cup that I'm lacking in the applesauce, I'm going to add just a little bit more banana. Okay, then it calls for a cup of raw beets, and I like to shred my beets and keep them in the freezer, so I've got a cup of raw beets. Actually, that's not quite a cup. I'm going to get out a little bit more there. You can see that I keep my beets, I shred them, and then I keep them in the freezer like this. Okay, I needed a little bit more beets. I thought it was a 3/4 of a cup, but it is a full cup. And you really can't make a mistake when doing this. Okay, so I've got the cup of raw beets. Now it calls for 3/4 of a cup carrots. And I keep my carrots shredded up in jars in the fridge as well. That's not quite 3/4 of a cup, but I'm going to add a little bit of butternut squash. So I'm going to add that to make up the difference. Calls for 1/2 cup of zucchini. I don't have a 1/2 cup zucchini, but I shredded up a butternut squash. So that's going to be my zucchini. Again, this recipe, you can use whatever you have and substitute almost anything. Okay, so into the food processor, I was supposed to put the dates, the pineapple, the banana up. I was not supposed to put, this is what happens when you don't read your directions. I was not supposed to put the beets and the other shreds. You're just supposed to blend up these others. So I'm going to take them out, put them in the pan. They don't need to be pureed with the dates. Okay, so now we're just going to puree the dates, the pineapple, the banana, and the applesauce. Okay, start that. Since I've got the dates in there, hold on tight. You have to use your power blender for this is because the sweetener is the dates, and you've got to puree those dates pretty well. I think I'm going to do this just a little bit more because I see some chunks of dates in there, and I want to be able to puree the dates well. So it's got the bananas and the pineapple. Both of those are sweeteners with the dates. So you've got the dates, the pineapple, and the bananas sweetening this cake. Okay, I think that's pureed enough. This is all of our sweetener. Remember, this cake has no sugar in it, or eggs, or dairy, and I promise you it is delicious. Okay, it's a little bit red because I accidentally had some of my beets in there, but no worries. Okay, so it says into a big pan, mix your flour. I've already got the 1 2/3 cup whole wheat pastry flour. That goes in there. And then it asks for, move this out of the way. I hope y'all can see fairly well. Okay, it asks for a teaspoon of baking powder. And 3 teaspoons of baking soda. Boy, that seems like a lot, but I will, 3 teaspoons is about a tablespoon. So we'll do that. There's our baking soda. We've already got the dates. Okay, now we need the beets. Where are the beets? Oh, they're already in the pan. Okay, carrots,
We got the beets.
We got the beets. Cocoa. Okay, here's how we make it chocolate. We're using cacao powder, and it calls for, I'm looking 3 tablespoons cacao. Okay, so we're gonna go 1, 2, 3. 3 tablespoons cacao powder. Okay, and now we're just adding all the rest of our ingredients. It does not call for flax meal, but I really put flax meal in just about everything I make because we get our omega-3s in there. And it calls for currants. It calls for 1/2 cup of those. So that looks like 1/2 cup of currants. And it calls for a cup of chopped walnuts. This does not quite look like a cup yet. Nope, I'm going to add a few more walnuts. And I've broken them up slightly. Again, this cake makes a huge amount. The first time I made it, the directions say to put it into a 9x14, and it literally overflowed in the oven. So I've learned now to make several smaller portions, and I freeze all but 1. Okay, so I'm adding the rest of my 1 cup of walnuts. And I'm going to get something to stir this with. Okay, so these are the cake ingredients right here. You've got your shredded beets, shredded zucchini, shredded carrots. In my case, no zucchini. I used butternut squash because we have a lot of it from the garden. Now, you know what I'm not seeing anything in here is any cinnamon. I feel like I add a little bit of cinnamon to every chocolate cake that I make, so I'm going to do that. A little bit of cinnamon to the chocolate cake. Okay. Now, remember we blended up in the food processor. Hey, Janet. We blended up in the food processor the dates, the bananas, and the pineapple, which is our sweetener for this recipe. And again, we're fixing Dr. Joel Fuhrman's Never Get Sick chocolate cake. And true to its word, it's got all sorts of great foods with antioxidants in it. Okay. So I'm going to use my hands because some of these beets were frozen and some of these walnuts are still a little bit hard. I'll break up the big walnuts and any frozen beets in here. My grandchildren really loved this recipe. The icing is macadamia nuts. And hey Pat, can you plug in my battery pack to this? I'm getting a low.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to add the sweetener, which is dates, pineapple, and bananas. Remember, any recipe that you want to switch from conventional to plant-based and make substitutions, those are all good sweetener substitutions. Fruits are great sweeteners. Okay, so there's our wetness, and it also calls for 1.5 cups of water, which I have added out. You see how much this is? This can't possibly fit into one container. And it asks for a little bit of vanilla, asks for 2 teaspoons. 2 teaspoons vanilla. And then it does not have salt in it, but I like to add a little bit of salt to all my baking. I feel like it needs a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to mix it. It's got the flour, it's got the sweetener, it's got the shredded veggies to pump it up. It's got some currants and nuts. And it's got the cacao powder to turn it chocolate. And we're going to stir it really good, blend it really good so the flour gets dispersed. And then I told you that I don't put it in the 9x14 pan as the recipe suggests because it overflows. And I use multiple pie pans. Okay, so just like this, you do not need to line it, or I used to put paper in it, but it really doesn't need it, because you can get it out with a spatula just fine. So I sort of spread it on here and just make it sort of a thin cake, and then I'll ice it when it's done. See, this is what it looks like right now. Okay, now we're going to make the icing with you. The icing has 1 cup raw macadamia nuts and or cashews. I'm going to use all macadamia nuts because Ben is allergic to cashews. Then it calls for 1 cup of soy, 10 for almond milk. I've got soy milk right here. 1 cup. And this recipe, the icing usually turns out really, really thick. 2/3 cup dates. Again, dates are your sweetener. I like to use my pitted dates for this. So there's the sweetener. And the icing also calls for 1/3 cup Brazil nuts or hazelnuts. I've got a combo right here. And then another teaspoon of vanilla for the icing. There's the vanilla. Boy, I've got a mess in here. Okay. And I add a little bit of salt to the icing as well. Okay. Now we're going to find our blender here. Can y'all see me way down here? All right. We're going to use the twister cap, if I can find it, right here to make the icing. And here we go. Oh wait, cacao powder. I do not think I added the cacao powder. 2 tablespoons cacao powder to make it chocolate. What did I say, 2 tablespoons? Okay. now fixing his breakfast, and it is a feast. He won't be hungry for quite some time. He's making his Mexican breakfast bowl, which literally takes him 30 minutes to assemble because he's so particular.
But look how good that looks.
Yeah, show everybody that delicious bowl he's about to
got
get into.
It's got greens on the bottom, some beans on the bottom, some broccoli, corn, onions, bell peppers, garlic, some Nature's Plate Tex-Mex scrambled enchiladas on top, some of the Nature's Plate cheese on top of that, and I cut up mangoes, tomatoes, and I'm getting ready to add a little bit of
taco sauce.
I got some taco sauce. I'm getting ready to add some romaine lettuce, and it's ready to go.
That looks delicious. Okay, I'm going to continue here with the icing. Make sure nobody had a question. Up. Mary Moody's there. Hey, Mary. Happy birthday. Okay, I think I can switch to the other top. And okay, just a reminder, we're making Dr. Joel Fuhrman's Never Get Sick chocolate cake. And here's the icing. Look at how good that icing looks. And again, the icing is nut-based. Choose whatever nut that you're not allergic to. It's got dates. So delicious. So I'm going to spread the cake out in 4 or 5 pie pans, cook it, and then I will ice it with the icing afterwards. I know this recipe seems a little intimidating because it's got so many items in it, but if you just take your time and line up all your items like I did on the kitchen counter, get everything ready, it really doesn't take that long to assemble. It does create quite a mess, looky here, but we're gonna have 4 or 5 cakes in the freezer, so it's all worth it. Alrighty, y'all have a great day, and stay plant strong. Bye-bye.